Welcome to The Impossible Shift. I'm your host, Jennifer Benson. Every person has a story, a moment that changed them, a challenge that tested them, a choice that shaped who they would become. On this podcast, we explore those stories through conversations about healing, identity, resilience, purpose, and personal transformation. We'll uncover the lessons that emerge when people face life's most difficult moments and choose to keep moving forward. Because transformation rarely happens all at once. It happens one choice at a time. Thank you for joining us. Let's begin. Welcome to The Impossible Shift. I'm your host, Jennifer Benson, and I am very pleased to introduce Lisa. Lisa is a change and resilience speaker and the author of Now What? She specializes in empowering high-performing teams to overcome burnout and change fatigue, drawing from her own experience with loss, burnout, and resilience. Her signature reset framework provides practical tools to navigate life's transitions, helping audiences tackle their own now what moments with clarity and confidence. Lisa, welcome.
Jennifer, my pleasure to be here. I can't wait to dive into our conversation.
Thank you for being here with us today. So tell us a little bit about your journey into this. So you mentioned a little bit about overcoming burnout. Explain a little bit more about what that looked like.
You know, it's happened to me twice, and you'd think you'd learn. Apparently, I need things to happen more than once to learn the hard way. But in short, I had pivoted from a position that I was in at the hospital. I went from a more patient-focused role to more of a prevention role. I work in oncology, so it was a very new area where I worked, and I kind of walked into a mess, really. And I would quickly, because I thought that I was the one that was failing. I didn't recognize that everything that was laid out in front of me was part of that. I thought it was a me problem. And the way I thought I could fix that is to work longer and harder. I was in at 6. I left at 6. I left after the janitor left. And I was just on repeat. I wasn't sleeping. I was constantly thinking. And even though I was at home, I was making myself notes and trying to figure out basically how to clone myself, because I had probably 24 balls in the air. And my husband, who is in a management role in that same organization, he said to me, Lisa, you need to speak to your manager and say, what is the biggest priority right now? I will handle all of this, but I can't handle all of it right now, which I thought was a very good question to ask. To which I was told, it's all important, figure it out. And again, put that back on myself. I felt like a failure. 3 months into this role, I had an evaluation by the same manager who told me that I was failing miserably at my job, that I was not putting in enough effort, that we were behind on this and this and this. And again, I internalized that. I saw myself as a big failure and cried through the entire evaluation and swore to her and to myself that I was going to change this. I was going to turn it all around, and I was going to prove to her that I could do this. And I think I spent about 2 weeks digging deeper, if you will, going in even earlier, staying even longer. shoving in my lunch as I worked through my lunch hour, didn't take a coffee break unless it was to sprint to the coffee maker, fill up my coffee cup and sprint back. That was my break. I was getting skinnier and skinnier. I was a ticking time bomb. And I remember distinctly one day coming home from that job, walking past my family who was sitting at the dinner table, because I was coming home way past dinner, walking past them without a word, dropping my bag, and in my bedroom dropping to my knees and just laying on the floor and crying and crying and crying and crying. And that's when I realized this isn't worth it. And besides that, in the same time period, not the same day, but in the same time period, I actually came home a couple of times, walked past my family again, sat in my walk-in closet, closed the door, and cried so that nobody could hear me. And once my brain started putting all of this together, and even then I hadn't quite recognized that it wasn't a me problem, that I was putting in, tons of effort, tons of time, but that I was set up to fail, essentially. Even though my brain hadn't come to that conclusion, the conclusion I came to was, this is going to kill me. So I was fortunate enough that I could go back to my old job, which ironically I earned more money in. It's just the kind of job, because it's patient focused. I can't take my patients home with me. At the end of the day, you go home and you're done. And, immediately just went, I'm sure my family did too. So that was burnout number 1.
So I love that, because so many people can relate to not necessarily the particular job you're in, but that feeling of just having tons and tons and tons of things just piled onto you and feeling that powerlessness, like how I'm drowning and I feel like a failure because you're setting me up to fail. And you're supposed to be my allies. You're supposed to want me to succeed because we're all in this together, but you are sabotaging this. And then, making that probably very difficult choice to walk away for the sake of your sanity, for the sake of your family, for the sake of your health. But that was a choice that you actually felt like that sense of, when you said it yourself, like that actually filled you with a sense of relief. And I guess it was a positive decision in the end, I imagine.
It was, definitely. I have zero regrets. I mean, I needed to leave that position. But like I say, I don't think I connected the dots for a number of years and come to the conclusion that, Lisa, you were not a failure in that role. You did the best you could. You tried again. But given the circumstances, there was no way that I was going to succeed.
And that, I think, is a really important message for a lot of people, because they will make excuses and say, no, this is me. I should just try harder. I should just work longer hours. I'm just not giving enough. They'll let themselves not eat, not sleep, not because they believe that if they just give more, that eventually it'll turn to tides. But in some situations, sometimes the best choice is to walk away. And sometimes that is the best decision. So I'm just so impressed that you came to that point. So go ahead and tell me the other one. Thank you.
As I say, I'm a slow learner, so it took me another time. And this one happened actually just a couple of years ago. I love building my business. I mean, so keep in mind that I still have one foot in the door in this position that we're talking about, in this patient-focused role, 1 day a week. That still, it's been diminishing over time, just as my business builds up. But I have 2 businesses, 3 if you count speaking. And I love everything about being a business owner. I love being my own boss. I love being able to pivot and switch directions if I want to. I don't have to go for approval and have a gazillion meetings about it. And, like if I want to change things, I just change things. So I love the aspects of my work. I do some bereavement work, which takes a little bit more capacity. I do speaking engagements. I do coaching. I remember sitting right here in this office thinking, it's like, oh, I recognize some of these feelings. I mean, it wasn't the gross breakdown, like I mentioned, like I wasn't laying on the floor crying, it wasn't that, but I recognized that I was going down that hole and that I was feeling overwhelmed. And then I felt like I was giving up time with my friends, time with my family. And I didn't want that. I mean, at this stage in my life, I think my time is almost more valuable than money. And I wasn't prepared to trade my mental health, a healthy family life, a healthy social life, all these kinds of things for burnout. And I remember pulling out a piece of paper, and I can't remember where I heard this or read this or whatever, but I literally drew a line down the paper and I wrote all the jobs I felt like I was working, and I had 5 at the time, and pros and cons. Or I think what I labeled it as love, don't love. So things that I loved about the job, things that I didn't love about the job. And I mean, on some of the sides, it was like, well, this pays the bills well, right? I mean, that's what keeps the lights on. But then there were things like, this is emotionally draining, or this is whatever it was. I went down and I made a list, and then I took a black Sharpie, and there had to be a personal level of fulfillment. And there also had to be some kind of return on investment. It didn't have to necessarily be financial, but I had to get something beneficial from doing it. And I literally took that black Sharpie and just started making X's down the page. And again, in that moment went, I feel lighter already. But it's, I think life is never a straight line. We think it will be. And it's not. Life is messy. Life is hard. Even when we have healthy boundaries, I feel like our workload can increase either by the season or, things that you enjoy, you're going to say yes to more often. Well, sometimes you can have too many things that you enjoy on your plate, right? And then that becomes a certain level of overwhelm as well. So it's certainly been a learning journey. But the interesting thing is, I feel like the universe, God, whoever, whatever you want to call it, is always directing us. And what is meant for us will find us. And, as I started sharing with my friends about, these burnout situations and just being honest, they said, man, like there are some opportunities for you to get out there and share this with corporate, because corporate is going through massive change. People are burning out left, right, and center. I mean, the upside of AI and technology is that we can work faster. We can, do a lot of things quicker, but that means that we as humans have to keep up. So people are really facing burnout. So anyway, just through word of mouth, I started stepping onto stages and speaking about change fatigue and burnout and all of these things. And that's the next path I seem to be going down.
That is so fantastic. I love how analytical and logically you chose to tackle getting rid of the things in your life that no longer held the value to you. And it's something that, anybody can do. You can grab a piece of paper, start writing that stuff down, and really focus and look at what you can get rid of, take off of your plate that no longer serves you. That's great advice.
The other thing that I learned, and actually this was my therapist that shared it with me, because, I'm a doer and I'm a fixer. I don't know if there's a technical term for that, but, If I see something in front of me that needs doing, I will do it. I will add it to my list. I will find a way to get it done because I get lots of joy in scratching things off my own. But she said, okay. She goes, that's fair. But she said, and there's a name for this as well, but it's a quadrant. And every task on your list can be put into this quadrant. One is delete. Like, do you really need to do this? Delegate. Ask for help. For example, accounting. I hate accounting with a passion. I know it's important. I mean, the CRA wants my information every year. So I hired a bookkeeper. That has saved my marriage. I mean, really. And then there's delay. So does this need to be done right now? Can we put that over on the side just for right now? Because maybe this is a really busy season. So to look at things through a lens like that, I found was really helpful.
I love that. And I think it with the impossible shift and what we talk about as far as like making change through choice and through agency, I think your message really, I think it's closely aligned because it talks about the practical application of what that might look like. As far as I've made decisions that I want to make changes in my life. Now, what does that look like as far as the day-to-day changes, the steps that one would take to start making those changes? And I really love that you were able to come onto the show and start talking to us about what those changes may look like. And they go from simple strategies to maybe a little more complex, talking about hiring bookkeepers. Maybe someone may not necessarily know how to go about doing that, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible, right? Hiring a bookkeeper, maybe you don't know how to, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. There's definitely plenty of ways to go about hiring a bookkeeper, and they can just reach out to you for some guidance, right?
Well, I think the other thing that I've learned being in business is that every single one of us are really, 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 really good at some things and really, really, really not so good at other things. Or we just don't like them. And we literally and physically cannot do everything. Like once your business gets off the ground, you can't do it all. But there are aspects of your business that only you can do. I mean, nobody else can sit in the host seat of your podcast and do your podcast for you. That would be just silly. But you might get support behind the scenes. Maybe somebody can do the editing. Maybe somebody can do the reach out to your guests and make sure everything's all ready to go. And I've found for myself, I mean, I talked about the accounting. That's just an example, but there's things that we either don't like to do, or like building a website is another one. I'm paying somebody right now a lot of money to rebuild my website because while I could do it, A, it's not going to look really good. B, it's going to take me 1 million hours to do. And if I take that time and invest it in my website building, I'm taking away from the things that I need to do in the business, the things that only Lisa can do, and frankly, the things I'm good at. So I think it's, you kind of have to take a little inventory of your strengths, your passions, what you're good at, what you need to do yourself, and then look at how can I, take some of this off my plate. And it could be simple. Maybe your spouse or your best friend could help you with some task, or your kids, or, you don't have to have a big budget for any of this stuff, but it's just being a little bit creative too. How could I simplify this or streamline this, or do I have to do this at all?
Absolutely, Lisa, for sure. I admit I have someone behind the scenes who does my audio editing because they are really good at it and I am not.
There you go.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. If there was anything that you wanted to leave with, with the audience today, a message for them, what would it be?
You know what? I am going to answer that just with a quick plug for my book. because inside the Now What book, I talk about my reset framework, and it really comes down to 5 simple things. R is release what you can't control. We've talked about that today. E is envision what's possible. Hope comes into that. Strengthen your what you're good at. E is energize, and it's how we can refuel ourselves when we're feeling that tipping point of burning out. And T is take action. If nothing changes, nothing changes. We have to start somewhere.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us today. And for those who are interested in checking out her book, I'm going to include all of the information in the description on the podcast. So be sure to check it out. Follow the link and check out our book. And there's also will be information to our socials as well. So connect with Lisa, find out more about what the services that she's offering. And thank you so much for joining The Impossible Shift. Until next time, take care. Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Impossible Shift. If today's conversation resonated with you, I invite you to share it with someone who may need to hear it. You can learn more about The Impossible Shift, explore resources, books, coaching, and upcoming projects at theimpossibleshift.com. Until next time, remember, choice is your power. I'll see you at the next episode.